Today, I'm joined by Dr. Vivienne Lewis, a clinical psychologist and senior lecturer in psychology at the University of Canberra. Dr. Lewis specialises in body image and eating disorders and has over 2 decades of experience in supporting people of all ages in reconnecting with their bodies. She's the author of Positive Bodies, Loving the Skin You're In, Nobody's Perfect, and Eating Disorders, A Practitioner's Guide to Psychological Care. Today, we'll explore why so many of us drift away from our bodies, how this unfolds at different stages of life, and the small, compassionate steps that help us return to ourselves from the inside out. Dr. Lewis, thank you for your time today. I'm so thrilled to have you here.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me on.
I think it's a very important topic for women of all ages. So when you look at the women and girls you work with, what are the most common ways you see body self-disconnection show up?
For a lot of women and girls, it tends to be just not liking, usually, shape and weight. That tends to be the major concern for females. And so you get women, like it's quite common for women to be quite unhappy with their appearance, and it tends to focus on sort of weight and shape. And then that sort of manifests in then just not doing the things that they want to be doing because they feel either self-conscious about their appearance or feeling judged from other people. And so it can really affect their mental health and their well-being, particularly for those women who might be perhaps more focused on it than others.
And is it really common across the board for all ages?
It is quite common. There was a lot of research on what they call a normative discontent in women, so where it's actually seen as quite normal for women and girls not to like their appearance, which is really sad.
So sad.
Really sad. And so you actually do see it usually starts when children start to compare themselves to other children or when they start to hear comments from the adults in their life. And that's when they suddenly become acutely aware of their appearance might differ to somebody else's. And so it does tend to start quite early. But that real sort of focus on sort of weight and shape usually occurs sort of late primary school, early high school.
And those sort of tween years, yeah.
Yeah, and then it continues till old age. Like I have some clients who are in their 80s who've been dieting for years and never liked their bodies.
That just breaks my heart.
Yeah. It's this sort of never-ending appearance focus, which is,
And so how often is body image a coping strategy for something deeper? Like obviously that's the after effect, isn't it?
Yeah.
But what's going on underneath?
Yeah, I mean, for like if you look at, say, women and girls who might have eating disorders, often that real focus on, say, trying to lose weight or change the body in some way can be because they don't feel that they have a lot of control in their life. They don't feel they've got the independence that they want. And so it can sometimes be a way of trying to get that, even though it actually ends up being you actually lose control when you go down that path.
So I guess it's similar to like OCD. So perhaps someone might go down the OCD route, which is about control as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
But instead it goes down another coping mechanism way.
Yeah, that's right. Because as human beings, we use all sorts of different ways to cope with emotions and with what's going on in our life. And some of those things are helpful and some of those things are not so helpful. And so where people might spend a lot of time focusing on changing their appearance, then it often leads to just withdrawal from what they're doing, withdraw from friends, withdraw from enjoying things, like exercise becomes unpleasant. Yes, things become unpleasant and eating becomes unpleasant.
If you could name the feeling, like would it be shame or would it be, is there a common feeling underneath it all?
Yeah, so it often can be, yes, that sort of shame around what the body looks like. And also sort of guilt around things like feeling guilty for eating or eating certain things or feeling sort of, ashamed, like I've got to cover up my body or I've got to hide myself in some ways, and then just not wanting to draw attention to oneself and getting very fixated on that sometimes, and particularly people with eating disorders, that tends to really override their
Which
day-to-day.
sounds exhausting, doesn't it? I mean, it must be so tough to live like that throughout your whole life.
Yes. Yes, it is. And what's interesting is when people actually go into therapy to try and help them with it, a whole new world opens up, because if you
Mm,
stop worrying about your appearance or stop worrying about what other people might say or think about it, then you do so much more. Like, you do so
yeah.
much more with your life, and you go out there and meet people and socialize and eat in front of other people, and, you know, and it
And do you
just
find that that's a quick fix, or is it years long, or it depends on the person?
It depends often when it started. So when you
Mm.
might see adults who've never liked their appearance and have always been sort of dieting or really focused on it, that can take longer because they've often had a long time to learn to think that way. So you're trying to undo like a lot of habits, a lot of ways of seeing oneself. So when you see adolescents or young adults, you've got less damage to work with, so to speak.
Sure.
There's less influence at that stage. Whereas when you might see people who might have their first presentation to a psychologist in their 40s or 50s, you're talking about undoing like years worth
Years of sort of
of sort of,
self-beliefs, like
yeah,
limiting beliefs about themselves and
that's right.
habits, right? Yeah. And I find that really interesting across a lifetime. You mentioned, someone that's 80, so to be carrying that
Mm,
throughout their whole life. So if
mm,
we were to look at early signs in childhood, you spoke about that
mhm,
sort of pre-teen, what
mm.
would be the red flags to look for?
Yeah, the red flags, particularly when, like, I see a lot of parents and they'll talk about, oh, my child has come home, and they start calling themselves names, or they start saying something negative about their appearance. That can sometimes be a sign. But certainly where you see that change in behaviour, so where might see children all of a sudden they won't wear something, or they won't go swimming, or they're starting to feel, you get the impression they're a bit ashamed of their body. Um,
Mm.
Even when their eating changes or their exercise patterns change. So you sometimes see those sorts of signs.
Not eating their lunch or
Yeah.
sort of hiding eating and things like
Mm,
that.
mhm. Yeah, and sometimes parents will, they'll notice weight changes as well, particularly when, like, this time of year coming into summer, where all of a sudden people are wearing less clothing, you start to notice those body changes. You might even see your child, like, it's the middle of summer and your child's wearing a jumper,
Yeah,
those
right.
sorts of things, which are just sort of a bit out of character, a bit unusual.
And what about teenage years? Is that the most sort of
Mhm.
common time when hormones kick in, peer
Yeah,
pressure kicks in,
yeah,
social media, although
yeah.
not for long, but all those things? So is that the perfect storm?
Well, yeah, that's right. It tends to be the worst time because, yeah, you're going through puberty, your body's changing. And for girls, they're becoming women. And
Mm.
if you look at social media and media generally, it sort of promotes often thinness, and when you're changing into a woman, things get bigger, don't they?
Booty
You
pops out. I remember that I was like a pole when I was
know?
pre-teens, and then I just
Mhm.
went poof poof
Yeah.
and just kind of blew out. But I mean,
Yeah.
I felt like I had a pretty healthy body image growing up,
Mhm.
which was lucky for me. But I'd imagine these days with social media, it's so much harder.
It is harder, but then on the flip side, people like yourself can actually really embrace it. Like, for some girls, they're,
Mhm.
oh, I've got breasts and I've got curves and this is exciting and all the rest of it.
Mhm.
But it often is that period where your body's doing things without having any control of it.
That's right.
And then you've got the influence of peers. And obviously, when we're teenagers, that's when you're more likely to be teased and there's more peer pressure.
Comparison.
And that's also when people start learning about diets and looking at what celebrities they love and what they look like and all that sort of side of things. as well as sort of dating as well. It's when they become interested in sex and sexuality, and so then you become acutely aware of your body and intimacy and all that.
And it's
Yeah.
easy to become fixated.
Mm. Absolutely, absolutely. So that's typically the worst period for most people,
So
is
if you
that.
can get through that, it's
Yeah.
pretty good, right? Because that's when it's all formed, isn't it? That's when your identity's forming about who you are, how you show up, what kind of friend you are, just all those sort of things are formed in those years, right? Where you do have that pull
Yes.
away from your parents and then you're influenced more by
Mhm.
the outer world.
Mm.
And what about pre and post pregnancy? Is that a common time as well for things to show up?
Well, it can, for some women it can, and for other women it can actually be a really positive time. We talk about the difference between when people focus on the aesthetics, so what you look like, versus how your body functions. And so for women, typically, yes, during pregnancy and after birth, obviously the body's changed.
A lot.
Yes, yes, and a lot of those changes are quite permanent as well.
Mm.
And so for some women, you'll get that, "Well, I don't like that because, again, my body's doing things without me feeling like I have control over it." But then on the flip side, you do get some women who actually focus on, gosh, my body's so clever. Like, it created a human being. Like, that's amazing. And they can actually look at things like it might be like a cesarean scar or what have you and go, oh, that reminds me of my babies. And, so sometimes it depends what sort of attitude you have towards
Just
it.
being able to flip the narrative.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And what about I'm 50 this year and I'm heading into those menopause years.
Yeah.
And again, I've noticed my body changing
Mhm.
quite a lot. So, what about the women in midlife when their
Mm.
bodies start to change again?
Yes, yeah. So definitely that sort of menopause period is another period. It tends to be whenever something significant occurs in terms of changes to your body. And definitely in menopause, yes, for a lot of women, they do start to, develop a lot more fat on their bodies, and their mood is affected as well. So you're trying to deal with that. You've also got the transition with, if people have got children, the children are often getting older, leaving home, that sort of stuff. So there's a whole pile of things going on during
Mm.
that time. And so it can be another period where women start to become very dissatisfied with their appearance, and again, feeling like their body's doing things without any control. And that can be another period where women don't feel so good about themselves.
It's a tough gig, isn't it? Unless you've sort of got that self-awareness or that support or access to therapy, or it's a tough gig for women because our
Absolutely.
bodies are forever evolving and
Yeah.
changing.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right, that's right, and it's
Mm.
very hard because, we talk about trying to, embrace that change and sort of focus on this is a normal part of bodily change and what have you, but that's really hard because there's a lot of messages out there that
Mhm.
tell us, "No, we should fight it, and these are some ways to stop it or change it, or this is what you can do at different things." So there's a lot of mixed messages out there, with.
Yeah. I find that the older you get, the more supportive of each other that you are, though, don't you think? And I think you tend to give less of a shit about
Mhm.
appearances, right? So I guess when you're older, to have that awareness, it's just much easier
Mm.
to not be so
Yeah.
fixated on it. You kind of
Yeah.
go, oh, yeah, well, it's changing. I'm doing everything possible. Like I'm eating well, I'm exercising, I'm sleeping well. There's only so much you can do without your body
Mm.
just naturally evolving and changing. So it's that
Yeah,
kind of self-acceptance piece, right?
yes, yes, and I think a lot of that is, like if you've got as well, if you've got friends that are going through the same thing, it's
Yeah.
easier because you can talk about it, can't you?
Yeah,
You
we're all in this together.
Yeah, and there's certainly that element that, often as we get older, we get more appreciative of our lives, and we get,
Mm.
less worried about what we look like, and we're more focused on,
We're
enjoying
alive.
that sort of, yeah, and that side of things, which is the way to do it, is actually to focus on, well, what brings me joy, because certainly fixating on the things I don't like about my body doesn't give me joy.
Yeah, it's being able to reframe it and think about the good bits rather than the bad
Mm,
bits,
that's
right?
right, that's right.
And
Yeah.
so, what are the common myths with eating disorders
Mhm.
that you see that we could unpack?
Yeah, well, typically the most common myth is that it only occurs to teenage girls. That's the biggest thing, and we know that eating disorders actually across the age spectrum and for both males and females. So, for example, again, I have clients who are in their 70s who have had eating disorders either their whole life or have developed something like a binge eating disorder later in life. They occur across that, and particularly there's a misunderstanding around women in midlife are likely to develop eating disorders as well, as you're saying, the changes and with menopause and things like that. So it isn't the case that it only happens to teenage girls. It's sometimes when it might first present, but it certainly can occur at any point. And as well, you can see it in younger girls. Well, there's also that idea that anorexia is the only eating disorder. So typically people, say, well, an eating disorder is someone who's really, really underweight. And if you don't look like that, then you can't possibly have an eating disorder. And the reality is you can't tell from looking at somebody whether they have an eating disorder or not.
Mm.
As in, there are a lot of people who have disordered eating who look incredibly healthy,
That's
and
right.
you would never be able to tell. The most common eating disorder as well is actually binge eating disorder, and that tends to be more associated with a higher weight. And so sometimes when some of the difficulties people face is they might go to see a health professional, often a doctor, saying, look, essentially I've got an eating disorder and this is what's going on. And then they're dismissed because they're not underweight. Of course, we know that eating disorders are not about your weight. It's about your mental health and how you feel. And also people can have internal things going on, but actually look perfectly fine on the outside.
And that makes me think about the commonly prescribed weight loss drugs at the moment, and just a
Mm-hmm.
lot of women that I know that are having conversations about it, like it's a
Yeah.
guaranteed quick, easy fix. How do you determine? You see people sort
Yeah.
of that aren't much bigger than me going on these weight loss drugs. Is that
Mm-hmm.
a problem? Is that an issue moving forward?
Yeah, the thing is with a lot of medications and injections and all that sort of stuff is, they do things like, they reduce your appetite and, or shrink your stomach and those sorts of things. But ultimately it doesn't actually solve the issues. If the issue is that you have a binge eating condition or a restrictive eating disorder or something, the medication isn't addressing that.
No.
So people who might need to lose weight, sure, there are chemical ways to do that, but what happens when you go off the drug or you can't afford it anymore? Like you haven't actually learnt any new ways of behaving or new ways of thinking. You've
Mm.
need to chemically alter your
Yeah,
body.
it's
You know?
fixing your appearance
Mm.
in inverted commas, but you're not actually fixing the internal narrative that's going on.
That's right, because often the reason why people struggle with their weight is to do with their relationship with food or their relationship with their body. And so if you don't address that, the issue remains. And so that tricky thing with only using medications and injections and that sort of thing or surgery or what have you.
Mm.
So it's actually addressing well, psychologically what's going on. I see a lot of clients who when they actually learn what's going on, like they learn about their relationship with themselves and their eating and their weight, and then gain that insight to go, I can actually do something about this. And when they actually change their behavior and their thinking, that's when their health improves.
And do you find it's easy for people to come forward and actually say they think they have an eating disorder, or are the
Yeah.
ones that are sort of living in shame still living their whole life with it?
Most people really struggle to come forward and say they have an eating disorder because there's an incredible amount of shame associated with it and guilt and a lot of stigma attached to it as well,
Mm.
and a lot of myths. So, sometimes you do find that people have actually tried to tell someone,
Just not the
often
right person.
yeah, it's often been a health professional and they've either been dismissed or it's been minimized or again, they haven't looked like someone with an eating disorder. So it is hard. And there's also, perceptions around when people are teenagers, are they doing, that idea of, oh, are they doing it for attention? Are they doing it
Mm.
trendy, and you're like, well, nobody chooses to have an eating disorder, and it's a miserable way of living your life. It can be extremely difficult for people to come forward and ask for help.
Absolutely. So, for someone listening now who may be feeling really disconnected from their body or perhaps hiding some unhealthy eating patterns in their own life, what's a compassionate first step for healing
Mm.
for them?
Yeah, I think first of all is it's actually acknowledging like it's okay if you don't feel okay. As in, like if you actually think you're struggling, is that's okay. Like it's actually quite common that we struggle throughout our lives with different things, and believing in your own worthiness to get help, like you're
Mm.
actually worthwhile enough to be able to ask for help and keep asking until you find the right help as but
That's definitely the first step to any
Mm,
kind of recovery, isn't it? To
mm.
reach out and
Yes,
share
that's
exactly what's
right.
going on. And so, how do you change that narrative from skinny to strong,
Mm.
which has been around for
Mm.
so long?
Well, I mean, we can't change the media and we can't change
No.
society as easily as we want to. I often sort of say to clients, I say, it's about trying to focus on your self-worth, like as in we are more than our appearance. Our appearance and our body shape is just one thing about us, whereas we have so many other things, and it's trying to remember that. As in, I often sort of say to young people, I say, tell me about your friends, like describe your friends to me. And they will say, so and so is really nice, so and so is really funny, so and so is good at this. They'll actually describe them for the person that they are. They
Mm,
rarely describe what they look like.
mm.
What you've got to do to yourself is actually remember that you're all of the things that you do and who you are and what's important to you and what you value.
I love that. That is actually quite a powerful, also for them to look back and understand that that's not how people are focusing on them as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's right, because I often talk to people, I said, like, first impressions around your appearance are fleeting. Like, as soon as you smile at someone, as soon as you say something, people focus on, "Oh, that person looks approachable," or "That person
Mm.
seems nice," or whatever it is. Like, your actual body size and shape counts for very little. And it's trying to remember that. And the other thing I often talk to people about is, the way that we treat our friends is with compassion and with care and with love. And we're very forgiving and very gentle with our friends. And we've got to learn to do that to ourselves. So if you
Absolutely.
treat yourself like your best friend, you'll treat yourself well.
It's so true. I was listening to a podcast today on how we speak to ourselves,
Hmm.
and you don't realize it until you become self aware
Hmm.
on actually how badly we do speak to ourselves. And we would never speak to our friends like that, but we speak
That's
to
right.
ourselves like
That's
that. And
right.
that's just
Yeah.
kind of just becomes this loop, right?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, I often say to people, I say, catch yourself doing it. So, like, when you're in front of the mirror, like, catch yourself saying yuck or
Mm.
negative or whatever, and then just stop and revisit it. Like, say, okay, what would a friend say, or what would my friend say right now? And you just you've actually got to keep practicing it, because you're trying to sort of unlearn the things that we
The
learn through
new
what have you.
neural
Yeah,
pathway.
that's right, and practice talking to yourself with respect and decency.
And
Mhm.
also listening to yourself, I guess. So when they come up, it's like, hey, what's
Mm.
going on there? It's almost having a bit of a conversation or sort of going to those wounded, vulnerable
Yeah,
parts of
yeah, that's
ourselves and
right.
acknowledging them to feel heard and then being able to reframe it, which
That's
sounds
right.
pretty out there, but I myself have found that's really powerful.
Well, that's the thing, is a lot of it is around if we know what we're thinking and how we think and we understand it, then we're actually in a much better position to be able to change it. And so it's that sort of insight and then thinking, oh, actually saying that to myself doesn't make me feel very good. So let me try talking to myself in a different way and see how I.
So, one thing I wanted to touch on was about healthy eating and dieting can often get a bit blurry, especially
Mm.
this day and age with every sort of diet, green smoothie, paleo, keto,
Mhm.
fasting. Like there's all
Mhm.
these kind of things, right, that are thrown at us that we tend to pivot and we're thinking it's for longevity. But is
Mm.
it? Like often it can get blurred. So how can you tell when nutrition focus has slipped into unhealthy restricted eating?
It's and I work with a lot of dietitians, and we talk about actually truly listening to your body's needs, because you're right, there's a lot of diets out there, a lot of fads, and this thing is evil one week and then it's good the next,
Hmm.
and you get a lot of mixed messages. And it's actually trying to think about food for its function. So if, say, I want to, I don't know, run around for the rest of the day, I need some foods which give me energy, or if I need to concentrate for the day, I need foods that are going to help me concentrate. If I'm about to go to bed, I need something that isn't going to keep me awake. If I need a bit of a pick me up, what sort of foods can I do to do that? And a lot of the time, those sorts of foods are actually a variety of things.
Mm.
So it's not saying I can't eat this thing, or that food's bad, or that food does this and this does that. It's sort of saying all foods are good foods, but it's thinking about how does that food actually help me do the things that I want to do.
To fuel my body.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And it's not saying that foods are good or bad, like putting moral values on them, because food is just food. There's nothing moral about it.
And I love that because all of those things that you covered, I mean, a bag of potato chips is not going to help with any of those things that you said, right?
Yeah.
So you will naturally go towards healthier options for any of those things that you mentioned.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. As in, usually when we need to do something with our bodies, yes, healthier type options tend to be the things that help us do that. Having said that, there's nothing wrong with having some chips if you want it.
Hmm.
As in, sometimes we do have foods just simply because we fancy it. You
They
know,
taste good.
yeah, that's right. They taste good and all the rest of it. Like, there's nothing wrong with having those things. But if you're about to go to bed or something, you might find, oh, I know that's going to keep me up, or that's going to make
Mm.
me uncomfortable in my stomach, or whatever it is. So it's just sort of saying it's around, yeah, if I really focus on what am I doing and what sort of foods will help me do that, then you don't start to get into that cycle of what's like, I should feel bad if I eat this and I should feel good if I eat this, and that sort of diet trap.
And so I have a 14-year-old daughter. So modeling healthy behavior and talk to her is
Mm.
really important to me. What are some practical language swaps that us parents can use to reinforce positive body image in kids?
Mm. It's actually about talking to yourself positively
Mm.
and saying it out loud, because children are always listening to what we say and they're observing what we do.
Selective listening.
And so it's like, being actually talking to yourself nicely. So, like when you're around the house saying, oh, this outfit makes me feel really comfortable,
Mm.
or I feel really relaxed today, or I'm feeling a bit sad today. What can I do that might actually help me feel a bit better? And it's the same when we're eating certain foods, is, sort of saying, oh, I've got this, work meeting and I really need to concentrate, so I better have something to eat. Or I'm feeling really thirsty, so I'll have a drink. So again, that focus on the function of foods, and
Mm.
not talking to children about, you that you have to earn food, or you only have food on special occasions or as a reward, because it sets up that good food, bad
Mm.
sort of mentality. And it is hard because obviously as adults, we've had our own sort of diet culture and what have you as well. So like all foods are good foods, but like what have you got to do? Oh, you've got to do your homework. How about you have some different variety of things to help you be able to concentrate?
And I guess more rather than saying, well, sugar is fat or sugar makes you overweight, I guess from a metabolic perspective, it's just
Mm,
not great for your organs. It's not good for your,
yeah,
right? It's sort of
yeah.
changing the narrative around health and longevity.
It's also helping children learn about foods as well. It's like, like when it's, say, a kid's birthday party, often by the end of the day, children feel sick because they've had a
Yes.
whole lot of sugar and what have you. So they actually are learning, actually, when I eat all that sugary stuff, I actually feel sick. So that's
Yeah.
actually a great way for them naturally to learn that I don't want to do that all the time.
I used to do that when the children were little and we did Halloween because I can't stand all the nasty, lollies that are handed out. So I would just say to them, eat whatever you can today and the rest is going in the bin. So, they would just be shoving it all in. And then they'd be going, oh, this is just terrible. And they sort of had that feeling of not feeling great rather than eating it over, 3-week period every single day. It was good for them to experience, I guess.
But it's also that thing of sometimes with things like, like sweet foods, if children have access to it whenever they want, they actually start to prefer non-sugary things. Because often we think, oh, well, if children have got access to it, they'll just eat it all the time. And you're going, they do on certain occasions, but that's
Sure.
often because they have no access to it until that. Whereas when children can actually choose what they have, they actually find they start to regulate themselves. So they'll just have a little bit because they start to notice that they feel a bit too sick if they have too much.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's a trick. It's tricky. It's tricky.
And it depends on the child and
That's
constant
right.
kind of check-in and understanding, isn't it?
Mm.
When would be the time to get professional help?
So I think particularly if as a parent you're feeling like out of your depth in terms of what to do, or where you say your child or yourself, you're actually feeling quite distressed by what's going on. It's always good. Prevention is better than waiting. Like if you're thinking, oh, I haven't been feeling real happy, or I'm not doing things that I could be doing, or you're noticing it in your child, is, go and either talk to a GP, or if you want to see a psychologist to get sort of more structured support, or even something like going to the Butterfly Foundation, which is
What is the Butterfly?
Yeah, so the Butterfly Foundation is the National Eating Disorder Foundation in Australia, and that has lots of information about body image, about healthy eating, about what are eating disorders, what are some of those warning signs, and they also have helplines and recommendations of where you can get help as well. So if it's more eating disorder specific. But most GPs these days can refer people to see a psychologist for more structured support.
It's just just by doing those steps helps create that self-awareness to understand yourself better.
Right. Absolutely. And that's the thing as well, like the Butterfly Foundation, just do some reading. Like some reading around some of these issues, and even things for parents who are wanting to know how to talk to their children about some of these things, mental health and well-being.
And do you see that it can be contagious? That's probably not the right word, but if one, say there's a teenager with an eating disorder, can that kind of ripple across?
Not necessarily full-blown eating disorders, but certainly that diet mentality. So it's not uncommon that you might have, say, a group of girls typically at school who none of them eat lunch because some of them have started not doing it. So then, to not be the odd one out, none of them do it. Or, before the formal and things like that, they're all thinking about, oh, I need to lose some weight, or I need to look this way, or whatever it is. So those sorts of influences can occur. And then that makes it really hard for parents to try and instill healthier relationships with our bodies, because these are the primary influence. I often say, just on that point, I often say to some of the young people I see, why don't you experiment by going to school one day and bring some lunch, or bring some morning tea for everybody, and see what happens.
Interesting.
Because often it's around, like I say, like if you want the change, maybe you've got to try it. Like
Create the change.
That's right. Like you bring, 9 times out of 10 they come back and they said, oh, everybody ate everything that I brought. I'm like, yeah, they're really hungry because I never normally eat at that time. So it's sort of helping them say, well, you can actually be different and you can actually make some change, and you'll probably find that there's a lot of other people that'll get on board with it too.
So, Dr. Lewis, I love to finish each session with some reflective questions. So what are some of the ways you reconnect with yourself each day?
So I make sure each day that I'm moving my body in some shape or form, and I like to move it in ways that are fun. So often I'll do things like I might, play some basketball, or I'll go to a cycling class where I meet up with my friends and do something fun, as well as also just having a little bit of downtime. So, like a little bit of quiet time. And that, sometimes when you're really, really busy, it might just be in the shower is your quiet time where you just
Hmm.
put on some plinky plonky music and just relax as much as you can. And as well, I think having some social connection is really important as well, particularly for people who might be working from home a lot, just so that you are actually connecting with people. And then the sort of usual things like trying to get good sleep and trying to make sure your body's nourished regularly throughout the day as well.
Makes such a big difference. So, what season of life would you say you're in right now?
What season of life? That's a good question. I'd say I'm in a joyful season of life, I think.
Heading into the Christmas break?
Yeah, heading into the Christmas break and also, feeling quite content with things. I've been on
Mm.
sabbatical this year from the University of Canberra, so that's been really nice just to get some research going, work on my latest book, and just, that's just been really refreshing.
How exciting. When does your new book come out?
So hopefully it'll come out early next year. So it's called
Great.
Embracing You, and it's a self-improvement guide around body image and self-worth. So it's meant for the general public, with some, ways to feel good about your body and feel good about yourself.
Oh, I love that. What a great way to end the session. But before we do, if listeners could take away one small gentle shift today on how they relate to their body, what would you invite them to do?
I'd say it's about being kind to your body. So being
Mm.
respectful and kind.
Absolutely. Dr. Vivienne Lewis, thank you so much for offering such grounded, practical guidance. These conversations help many of us reshape the stories we've carried for years. I'm so grateful for your work and for your time today. If people want to go a little deeper, where can they find you?
They can find me at the University of Canberra. So I'm an academic there, and so they can actually just Google my name, Dr. Vivienne Lewis, and I'll pop up there.
Fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for inviting me.